All right, everyone. Thanks for coming. Thanks for hanging out. We're going to cover three kind of main meaty topics. The first one is maybe just a quick background on who we are, why we exist. Most of you know this, but you might not have seen some of these things. Thought it would be helpful just to quickly take you through that. I promise I won't take too much time on it. Graham's going to demo everything new that you may or may not have seen. Some of it you definitely haven't seen. Some of it you might have seen. And then we're going to talk a little bit about some of the things coming next. So with that all out of the way, I'm going to plow forward here. As always, if you have questions, drop them in the chat or drop them in the Q&A area. We will save time to go over it at the end or throughout. You never know. Could just
probably throughout. Probably both. Yeah. This will be fun. We'll keep it candid. We'll just go as we go.
Okay. So as we kind of dive into the first one, why do we exist? One of the things we talk about a lot internally, and something maybe some of you have experienced, you know, Graham and I kind of come from a background of HR tech. And one of the things we heard in the past from CEOs and every HR team that we ever worked with was employee engagement is one of our top priorities. And the CEOs would always say, well, it's correlated to high performance, and the HR teams would say it's correlated to high retention. It's really important. We have to care about it, and we're going to do all these activities to care about it. I think something that's not often talked about is the fact that engagement scores haven't changed in 20 years, right? Not only are the amount of people engaged not moving, but the amount of actively disengaged people, those numbers aren't moving at all either. And there's a lot of things you can infer from this data. It's often not talked about, I would say, by HR tech vendors. Some people wonder, like, does that mean there's just 30% of the population are born engaged? It's not true. What actually happens is that 70% of your score, or the variance in anyone's given score, is an individual's direct manager. So basically, if you have a great boss, probably pretty excited to go to work. If you have a terrible boss, as probably a lot of you have had at one point, you're probably not super excited to go to work. And one of the things when we were kind of thinking about building out this suite is, well, you know, every vendor out there is trying to fix these problems by building a suite for HR and HR teams. And we thought, well, what if we built a suite for managers? If managers actually control that problem, what if we actually gave the suite to the people who owned it, right? Who own those performance metrics, who own the engagement of their team, who have to deal with the consequences of employee retention. What if we did that? Building it for the first time, manager all the way up to the CEO and the executive, what would that platform look like? So we set out, and the first thing we looked at was the calendar. What is the manager already doing, and how can we make those things 10 times better? And it turns out most of the time, actually, a lot of the time on everyone's calendar here probably is not only spent on tasks that help you do your job or the business do their job, but in many cases help your direct team or indirect team do their job as well. And doing a great job in those moments can sometimes make the difference between hitting goals, not hitting goals, or getting people excited or not. We do a lot of these meetings, almost nothing more in the world of work that we do than meet. Something I think we forget about is often as managers kind of the core tool in our tool belt. If we have a growth and development conversation, it's going to be happening in a meeting. If we have to deal with performance, it's going to be a meeting. If we want to just motivate, if we want to build rapport, we're going to likely be doing those things in a meeting. I won't bore you all with the fact that we know meetings have a problem, but I will give you one stat, something just to think about, which is that after 48 hours after a meeting, your team is likely only going to recall 28%. And that number continues to drop as days go on. So if you've ever felt like you're in a meeting and you say things like, didn't we talk about this? Didn't we have a conversation about this? Didn't we decide this already? Weren't you going to do that? For the most part, almost 75% of the time, if it's more than 2 days later, they're going to say, huh, what are you talking about? Unless you have an incredible memory like Graham. Graham is able to like remember every conversation in meetings. I forget everything. And it goes without saying, this remote work that we're all doing is just making everything way more work. There's no informal meetings anymore, as the amount of time we're spending in some of these formal meetings continues to go up. And so I think it brings frustrations to all-time high. The last thing I'll say before I'll kind of pass the baton here is that the software largely that exists out there, Zoom, for example, helps us have this meeting. It doesn't necessarily help us manage. You don't have to go too far to see that the tools we're using to actually manage, whether it's those team members or team conversations, aren't too far off from the tools that we were using, I don't know, 40, 50, 60, 70 years ago. Everything in this office, this is the co-founder of Intel. Everything in this office has changed except for the paper. We're like using the exact same paper on our desks. Everything else is different. Like the coffee cups are smaller. I mean, he ran a computer company. He's got a desk pad calendar. Remember those like calendars on the desk?
Some people still use them.
People still use them.
Yeah.
Everything has changed. Except that is actually Andy Grove running a one-on-one meeting. Kind of fun. Goes without saying, we think it's time for change. We spent a lot of time the past 6 months gearing up for change and making some changes and making some tweaks that we think you're going to like. A lot of it is because of you. So before I pass this over, I will say thank you. I've had about, I think we tallied it up, 350 customer calls with end users or customers. And Graham will back me up. If you've ever talked to me, I usually say that I go and talk to Graham and bang pots and pans and make become very annoying until these things are fixed. So or addressed or whatever. So Graham will attest.
There's a bit more than just bang the pots and pans, but it's helpful. It's good context. He always shares good information from customers.
I always bring it back. So a lot of these changes, I think, are because of those conversations. So I'll start by saying thank you for that. Excited to share them. If you haven't seen them yet, really excited to walk you through all of those things. Graham's going to take the lead. I'll stop the share and let him take over here.
Yep.
And maybe while he's doing that, hello to those who've joined midway through.
All right, and please let me know if you can see part of my screen.
Only part. Yeah.
Okay, does it look good?
It's getting there.
Okay, yeah. If I showed my entire screen, it'd be too big, and then the actual window would be too small. So I figured this would be a good balance. Okay, so you can see the app. It's already centered. Yeah, so should I just start, Brennan?
Yeah, jump into it.
Okay, great. Yeah, so there's 3 areas that we're going to go over today. I'm going to show you a whole lot of features that we've pushed out, I'd say, in the last 4 months. So this is our winter changelog. So it's anything we did from the summer up until now. If you want to see all this in more detail, you can go to our website and go to, I think it's /changelog, and you can see every single month I post what we've done. And you can also follow the Hypercontext on Twitter or myself, and you'll see a changelog every single week. Well, every week that I actually get to doing the changelog, I post what we've done that week.
It is very fun. He has GIFs and videos. The Twitter is kind of the fun one for sure.
I have fun on Twitter when I rarely post. So check that out. That will be up to date. And then I guess we just agreed on the show on this Zoom call that we're going to do this every 4 months. So every 4 months, we're going to do one of these. This is the winter one. We'll do a spring one in a couple months. So in terms of the structure of this presentation, we really focused over the last 4 months based on customer feedback, focusing on the calendar being the first point of contact when you want to jump into the app and start to use it. And then we really focused on the note-taking elements of it. So those are the 2 main areas. And then the third thing we did was work on a flow so that this would be super integrated into your workflow. And I think that's a really interesting way that we've gone about it. And I'm really excited to get to that part. But of course, I'll start with number 1, which is the calendar. So here's the app here. I've already loaded up a workspace. Workspace is this part here. And you can see on the side what we launched about 4 months ago is this part here. And this is how we connect to your calendar. So we call it the calendar sidebar. And then basically it shows from today all your calendar events that you have in your calendar, be it Google or in your Outlook calendar. And then as you can see, there's some that are colorful and some that are not. So the ones that are colorful, as you'd expect, they're the ones that are connected to Hypercontext. So I have here, I have a discussion launching. I'll talk about that in a second. I have this changelog demo that's currently open. That's why it has that little indicator on the side. And if I scroll down, a bunch of meetings that aren't connected, but then a bunch down here that are. And you can see one-on-one meetings, any team meetings, anything that's recurring are the ones that we recommend you would have connected to your calendar. But don't worry if you don't want to. I can see Brennan about to say something. What are you going to say?
Oh, you're already moving. I was going to say, like, a lot of this again is I think when we rolled out some of the Chrome extension changes and connecting it to the calendar, I think a lot of the feedback was, hey, this is really intuitive. We like how this works. And so we thought, well, why don't we bring some of that intuitive stuff right into the app natively and make that first experience a little bit better for the folks that you might be inviting.
Exactly. And for those who haven't connected the app to their calendar, we also still support the old way. So if you've been with us for like over a year plus, you'll remember the calendar sidebar. You can go also just, you have the workspace sidebar. We did make some tweaks to it. And so what we've done is we've actually made these little buckets called sections where you can aggregate workspaces that make logical sense to you into a bucket and store it there. By default, it does sort it alphabetically. So you'll just have it there on the sidebar. But as you can see, this is just how I've sorted mine. I have my meetings where it's Brennan and myself having conversations. I have ones for the product specifically. So I have actually my product one-on-ones with my direct reports, as well as my product team meetings. And then actually I'm seeing one here that should be in a different category. So you can drag and drop these right from the sections into another section. You're also able to create new sections. So if this was, let's say I had like a product eng like group, I could make that, and then I could dump in some of those specific ones there.
And one thing I'll say here is this is for you and kind of you only. Every individual can organize their sidebar how they want to organize it. So Graham organizes it functionally, which is really cool, and something that before I saw him do it, I never really thought of. I organize mine more by type of meeting. So all my team meetings are in the same spot. All my one-on-ones are in the same spot. All my skip levels are in the same spot, which allows me to jump to the I guess the way my brain thinks. Now, Graham, for the attendees who maybe don't know, you and I use keyboard shortcuts probably to jump around our app a little bit more than both of these.
That is true.
You want to let them in on the secret?
I'll let you in the secret. So I actually never, so this is an amazing feature. I love it to death. I rarely use this at all. I don't ever use the sidebar. I typically live in this world here where the sidebar is collapsed. I usually go Command K, or on a PC, it would be Control K. And that brings up this little jump to menu, and you can type in where you want to go. So if I want to go to, let's go to a product meeting, product design meeting, then I'm here in that space. If I want to go back to my changelog demo, back there as well. So it's a quick way to jump around to different meetings. One of the coolest things the teams launched recently is that if you just go to hypercontext.com, our actual website, hit enter, based on the time that it currently is, and if you have the meetings connected to your calendar, it's going to automatically pop up the right workspace for you. So it knows that this is right now the changelog demo. It's live, so I'm right in that meeting there. So it's going to save you 3 or 4 clicks just to get to that space. So if you have connected to your calendar, this is the best way to quickly just get to your workspace. Cool. And then the last part that we worked on earlier in the last, I guess in the last 4 months, is this really cool space. I'm not sure if people even know about this, but so Hypercontext isn't just for team meetings and one-on-ones. I don't know if I bring the sidebar back up. We have the ability to launch discussions. So we built this really cool view for discussions. I'll show it to you here. And so discussions are the large scale group meetings that you would have that are kind of cross-functional. Maybe it's multiple departments would meet, or in the future have a discussion with some of your customers or other companies that you're working with. So it's kind of a time-bound conversation that you would have where you can ask your attendees to vote and discuss those items, and you would talk about maybe the top 5 or 6. So it's more of like a real-time AMA or a customer pain point interview, a project kickoff, lots of different ways to use it. So what we've done is we've tried to make them more visual. So right now, you can see here, we have one, it's just a demo one called Ask Me Anything About Hypercontext. You can see a nice little profile card to that. I'll click on past discussions just to show you what it would look like if you didn't have a profile card. So we show you the emoji and then the nice background color. So if you have discussions already live, they'll still look pretty good, but we have tried to amp up the design. If I click on that, then it takes over that top bar. So it gives you a sense of personalization on your conversation. We obviously are very big on the space theme and moving to taking hypercontext as a rocket ship to the moon. So we've kind of amped that up, but this is what it would look like here with the countdown clock. And we've made it very easy to change and modify the colors as well as the cover image that's being used. So it's very simple.
So we
any
use these,
size.
I was going to say, we use these all the time with our larger meetings, usually like company-wide meetings where we don't necessarily want everyone in the company to mess with the agenda, but we do want their input. So when it's a town hall like Graham has here and Ask Me Anything, people can go in, they can submit their questions, we can answer them live, we can also answer them asynchronously on this tool, add those summaries in there, and everyone kind of gets notified. But it also gives us time to prepare, right? Like we're not put on the spot with some of these questions, and typically discussions have voting sorted by default. So typically we answer the top 10 questions by votes. And then, we run out of time. We try to do the rest asynchronously. So really good opportunity for your companies. If you're using this more company wide, I would say it's probably the evolution of our tool. Once you get everyone on it, then as they're in between meetings, things like this become really, really easy.
Perfect. Anything more here, Brennan, you want me to cover? Should I go back to the?
I think you're good.
Great. Okay, so I'll jump back, Command K. I'll go back to my changelog. Perfect. All right. So that's basically all the stuff we've done to amp up the calendar. I guess calendar first as our methodology to kick off a new workspace from the calendar. You could just tap one. So if I tap on, let's go engineering Scrum. And then we do try to auto-populate just a background color and emoji for you. We have a bunch of other colors we've just added just to give you more variety. People ask for that. And then by clicking this create workspace, it's going to automatically invite those 12 people onto the agenda. These are people who are in the calendar invite. And if you don't want to do that right away, you just uncheck that, or you can click edit, and then you can modify who's actually coming to the meeting itself. So that's another thing we've added there. That's the calendar. And then I'll move off to talk about how we've focused on note-taking. So I'll go back to the change demo.
And one thing while he navigates around that you might not have noticed is there's little video icons throughout. So whenever our app kind of finds that there's a video call option, whether it's a Zoom or a Google Meet or a Microsoft Teams, we'll display that. And you can just almost use our app a little bit as a jumping off point to those places. So even if, that engineering Scrum example isn't in our app, Graham might still be able to say, oh crap, I have that coming up. I can go and join that really quickly.
Like this, go join the call immediately. But I won't actually join it. It's not happening now. Cool. The next major focal point. So that all of the stuff you just saw there was all based on customer feedback over the last 4 months. And really before that, we've known people wanted to use hypercontext right from their calendar. We've done a lot of work to make that more integrated. Another big piece of feedback we've gotten over the last year and a half is just make improvements to how you take notes in the app, just to make it more fluid and more intuitive for the end user. So we've done a lot of that. So one thing I'll show you is, so I typically, when I use the app, I use it in compact mode just to have a nice clean agenda with items. And then I actually click in an item, and then I use the keyboard up and down buttons to scroll between the items. That's another little keyboard shortcut. So I up, and then down, down. That's how I use it personally. Just that's more efficient for me, but a lot of people like to stay on this agenda page. So if I switch it from compact to standard mode, now you get all the content popping up right on the agenda. So you can see on this item here, there's a summary of the conversation. This one here below has 2 next steps that are there as well. This one doesn't have anything. And then we've now added, before there was a bar at the bottom to add your item. Now we've added the ability to select a suggested item. So you can quickly just pop open the little side tray with the suggested items. And there's all the different functionality that still exists there. So if this is a team meeting and I'm a direct report and I want to add a conversation about growth, With a couple of clicks, I'm able to narrow down the list of just growth conversations and then quickly add them right to the list here. Very, very simple, all from the agenda. And if I want that to happen in line here, I can click on the add in line and then add the item here in this exact spot. Let's have a conversation about growth. Terrible item, but it is what it is. Cool.
And I think a lot of this has kind of come from feedback from customers saying, hey, we want this to we like that this is structured in a way, but we want it to feel a little bit more like a document. So a good half between a list of items and kind of a free-form text area.
Exactly. And then if you had a keen eye, you saw that when I hovered over any of these sections, you do see this thing here. We're calling it the inline content adder. It's just a quick way if you have an item. So this one already has a summary, but if I was to say, okay, I want to add a next step on this item, I would hover over it, tap on next step, and then it automatically focuses me on the next step section here. So I can say, okay, well, this is what areas of the company would you like to learn more about? Program to craft a document by end of month for this. If I tip enter on that, it's going to then autofocus me on the next step that I can keep going. But it also, because of our AI that we have in place, it's going to say, okay, I'm supposed to craft this document by the end of the month. It's going to pick the end of the month, or I guess the beginning of the next month as the due date, and auto assign me because I mentioned myself in this meeting. And then if I was to hit the tab button, now that I'm focused on next steps, I would then be able to update the summary that's in place, add attachments, add a comment, or go back to the beginning to modify the item itself, go to the description, and you can see it just constantly rotates me through all the different sections within the content adder. So we're slowly adding more shortcuts to the app.
And I think like all of this helps make the app quite a bit more intuitive. Instead of knowing you have to click on an item to figure out, I've got to add a summary or I got to add a description. As you use the app, these buttons will be presented to you, and as you want a description, it should be pretty quick and easy to do so. So we're pretty confident that this is going to be like the primary way everyone's going to be adding content to agendas going forward. But it's also a big change. Things will feel different. How you edit and open and tweak your agenda will be a little different. And so that I know it's certainly caused us to be a little bit, our patterns and muscle memories have to change a little bit, but really excited to get this one out to you as soon as possible and get your feedback on it, especially the folks that are in here. Are we rolling that out today? Are we rolling this out?
It's supposed to roll out today. I think we're having one last pass to make sure we're happy with it, and then we're gonna roll it out. And there's a couple tweaks I want to be made to it in the future, but they're not blocking. So hopefully it goes out today to everyone. But definitely before the holidays, it will be out live. And that is this content adder here.
That's right.
It's cool, but you're right. I've had to change really the way that I've used it for the last 2 years to adopt the new pattern, but it is better. Once I fully embrace it, it is more functional and more intuitive.
And we are working on a whole bunch of keyboard shortcuts around it, just so it feels a little bit more natural.
Modern, natural.
Yeah. So we think you'll like it. We definitely want you to play around with the test. It's going to go out today. Certainly by the time you're playing with things tomorrow. Yeah. It'll be there.
Definitely. A couple more things on the notes. So another thing we did was remove the limits on anything. So this was, again, another big item from customers that they felt very constrained to the limits we had put on the length of items, the length of next steps, how many next steps you could have on an item. So we've just removed all limits. So you can have the world's longest description at the very top of your workspace. You can have incredibly long items, summaries as well. Just enter the content you want to enter and then refine from there. So hopefully that makes everyone happy. We also try to be smart about it. So you can see on the description, this is super helpful when you're importing a workspace from a calendar event that has like a Zoom blurb in it with all the different contact information. So it's going to hide all that complexity and just give you the show more button. You click on the show more, and then it's going to show you that information here. So just to make it a little cleaner on your agendas, because they did get a little bit messy, if you saw that. Another thing we've done is we've before we just had a very simple content block here. Now you can hit enter and it's going to format the information properly. So hitting enter creates a hard line and or like a paragraph change. So this is me adding content to the description. Oh man, it's hard to type with my mic right in front of me. Description.
While Graham does that, we'll give him, oh, okay.
Yeah, hit enter, then it pushes the content down farther. And if you can also do soft returns by hitting shift enter. So if I go, this is the top of the line, shift enter will do a soft return.
And what I'll say for those
hard return.
Paying attention to this, I would stay tuned until the end. We have some maybe cooler announcements coming on the text entry stuff.
Okay.
I don't know. It feels like an announcement. Does it feel like
that's true. That's true. Actually, yeah, what we're working on now is going to take that to the next level. It's going to be real cool. It's going to be pretty awesome. So please stick around at the end.
All the good stuff's at the end.
Yeah.
We stacked end heavy.
I know we did that on purpose. It's just,
True.
And then the same thing works for next steps as well. So if I do shift enter, it's going to make a soft return here. So I can have multi-line next steps. Multi-line.
Yeah, this is something that a lot of the customers have been really pushing for as multi-line next steps. So it's definitely not how we use our next steps, but we figured like why limit the folks who want to do it. So if you need multi-line next steps, go for it.
Yeah, like I can see it like this, just for clarity. If you have multiple next steps, if you're doing that.
Yeah.
And then let's say like Brennan.
And often we're seeing folks even come back after, maybe they didn't get it done on the due date. And so they can kind of go in and create a new paragraph and just say, hey, update, like, can't get this done because of this.
Oh yeah, totally. So you can do like Jan 1st update. Good.
In case you need to do that, that's now much easier.
Check the comments for more information.
Yeah.
And then, boom. And then if you notice, Brennan wasn't tagged in that because he's not actually invited to my changelog. It's just me in here. Anyway, AI, it would have worked. Did I get all the notes for that? Oh, I didn't. I have so much more on this. Okay. Great. So that's the other part. Yeah. I have one more thing to add to this. Okay. So this is the agenda. What we also did, and you may have noticed this if you have access to the goals that can be put onto your agenda. So if I click on the goals section, this is where it's really helpful for one-on-ones when you want to have growth and development goals for individuals. It's really good for team meetings or team workspaces if you want to have goals for your team and make sure they align to your business objectives. And then again, we do have this massive amount of goal examples. It's like the biggest library in the internet today. Yeah. It's growing daily. How many are there in there now?
We're over 300.
That's so many.
340.
Amazing.
And I think the next largest is just over 100. So
okay, that's great.
So if you're doing OKRs, you're doing goals with your team, built in. This is also available on our website for free, but built into the goals function is the ability to kind of borrow from battle-tested folks and kind of collaborate with your team on what their goals should be, either team or one-on-one.
And these are all from our peers in the industry. So these are used very regularly. I use them with my team as well. So this function has existed before this last, 4-month period. If I click in one, you can see I have this goal here. It's got some metric milestones, and this one has been completed. I should have checked that one off. I'll do that now. And what's great is that you can actually show this on the agenda. So goals is great here to talk about them regularly, but they're not, unless they're on the agenda in your meetings, you're going to forget that you even have goals. So what we've done is bake it in right to your talking points. So I'll show you here. If you ensure that button's checked, and it is checked by default, I just had it off for the demo, but it's checked off by default. If you go back to the agenda, now every time you have this meeting, you're going to talk about the goals right away. And this is going to be an ongoing recurring item that you talk about, and it's going to show you the progress towards you hitting your goals. So it's just a great way to constantly stay on top of things to make sure you're actually going through it all.
We think of this a little bit as like a modern day check-in, like goal check-in, performance check-in conversation. And just by having this in the flow of your normal meetings, your normal workday, the stats are alarming, right? 95% more likely to actually hit these goals simply because they're top of mind. And that's another reason why we actually default to the top of your list instead of the bottom. Make sure you see it every single time.
Exactly. And this has been super helpful, especially with some of the employees where you're not sure what to have, like what you're going to talk about that week. If you just have goals, just checking on your goals, it's going to kick off a whole bunch of conversations. At least that's what I found in my own personal experiences. Yeah. So it's super, super helpful.
So if you don't have access to that, but you are like, oh, I didn't know about that, I want to try it out, reach out to the team. We can give you guys a free trial. No problem.
Oh, yeah. Tell them Brennan sent you. You get an extra long trial.
Yeah. No, say Graham. You'll get better service if it's Graham. If it's me, it'll be like, that Brennan guy, not again.
That might be true. All right. I think that's it for the notes that we currently have available. Again, stay to the very end because we're going to talk about the stuff that's upcoming, and we have a lot of changes coming to notes to make them really high powered. Cool. The next section I want to talk about is just the flow of information and how you can use all of our tools together to have very fluid and effective meetings with your team.
Now, I think probably before you even start this, some of these things are going to be in beta, but available to everybody right now. Is that true?
Yes.
Everything I'm going to show you exist. They might not know they exist. Yeah. Okay.
So this will be a fun little leak of all information. Okay. I have to modify my screen a little bit, but I'll do it now. Let me just bring this up here. Oh, can you see the top bar part? I can go full screen if that's easier.
See it now. Yes.
Okay. So you can see this top part here. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to bring this a little smaller just because you don't need to have this in focus. Sorry, everyone. I'm just going to adjust my screen. Zoom gives you this great ability to have like a part of your screen shared.
Yeah.
And I think that's super helpful. I'll also need Slack in a second for this. So I'll just keep Slack in the background. Okay. Yeah. So over the last few months, we've also been working on 2 extra apps to help power the Hypercontext ecosystem. So one is we've launched a Mac app that sits up here in your top bar. So I have a bunch of apps here. I hope that it works. You can see it perfectly. Can you see that part? So you can probably see Docker and a bunch of other apps. So this is the Mac here. I'll even go all the way across the top just to show you this little section. So this is my entire top bar.
Yep.
Hopefully the screen isn't too weird.
It's weird.
Is it weird?
It's okay.
Okay.
We
get the idea. So that's the whole side top bar. So we just sit, we built it. It's a in-tray app. So it sits here in the top. You would connect to your workspace. It's very easy to sign into it. Once you're signed in, I'm just stretching my screen again to focus it on the Mac, on our app specifically. When you are connected with it, it does then, when you click on it, it pops down your what's happening today. And it's going to highlight any meeting that's happening right now or upcoming. This is incredibly helpful when you're back to back with a whole bunch of one-on-ones and team meetings. Brennan and I have this happen every Monday and Friday for sure. And this app basically powers the entire day. It's a quick way to know, okay, I have hypercontext changes in progress. What's upcoming? Okay, well, I have nothing today, but you would see what's on deck. And then you have this quick join button here. This is literally how I show up to every one of my meetings now. I just click that button at the top and I join the meeting. It's then going to open up the Google meeting space for us, or connect to Zoom or Microsoft Teams or whatever meeting app you're using. We do our best to try to find that meeting conference link. So that's super powerful to get you into your meetings. Then you'd be inside the app having your meeting. So this is, I'm having a changelog, documenting, commenting on all the things I want to talk about. When you're finished the meeting, you would hit the finish meeting button. Before I do that, we've also launched a Mac app. And you can add the app. Slack app. Oh, sorry, Slack app. So many apps, an app for everything. We've added a Slack app to help keep track of your meeting notes. So I'm going to actually show you live, and this will totally work because my team is so good. If I invite our @Hypercontext app, this is available on the Mac store or the Slack store today. I'm going to invite the Hypercontext app. So it's going to pop up a message saying, which workspace do you want me to connect to? And it knows who I am just automatically because of my email address, which is associated with Slack and with my workspace. I click on choose workspace. It's going to show me everything that I have access to. And then I will pick the changelog meeting, changelog demo. And that's it. So now they're both in sync. So if I can keep this to show you live demos, this is full trust in my team to make sure there's no bugs or nothing's going to go wrong. So if I finish the meeting here, I'm very happy with the default naming of it. Finish. It's going to close all the items and archive them into a past meeting. That's what this message here is telling you. I'm going to do that. And there you go, almost immediately. And this is just because it's a one-off meeting. So I'm just going to close without syncing. It immediately then creates this here, this little notes section. And so if I click on side of this thread, it's going to show me the notes that were taken in that meeting. So it's just a great way to, it's a great flow of information from use the Mac app to connect to your meeting, have your meeting in hypercontext with your agenda all filled out properly, have a wonderful meeting, finish it, and then the notes get automatically put and searchable inside of Slack for your posterity or for your future. And then of course your team can go in and add more context if they want, but all the content will be inside of this thread. The reason we thread it is just because it's cleaner. That way you have, here are the meeting notes for your workspace, and then the specific link to that archived meeting. So it's a very quick way to also go back to it.
So we've been adding these to the kind of popular channels that we're in all the time on Slack as we're talking with our team and sharing notes back and forth with our team. And, that same group of people tend to have a team meeting. We are sending those notes to those public channels. And that also is giving increased visibility, especially as a remote team, way more visibility into what's happening with some of these other groups, right? A lot more passive listening in if needed, and kind of spurring conversations. So they don't necessarily like take up and destroy the channel with notifications or spam or anything like that, but definitely gives you the ability to keep everyone informed in the same way that you would over email.
Yep. And then the last part of the new flow changes that we're making that I want to talk about is the ability to have this all happen automatically. So once you've connected your Slack experience and you're using the Mac app daily, by enabling this Autopilot, it's going to do the whole finish meeting flow for you automatically whenever your meetings are finished. So you have your meeting, you show up, you take your notes, you collaborate, and then you just walk away. You close your laptop, you go off to the next meeting or go out for coffee. And then our app will automatically archive those items and create that meeting for you without you having to manually click this button. And that's through our Autopilot feature, which we're going to be focusing a lot more on over the next 4 months.
So that's the, I would say, core workflow that we use. I would say also that we're in the Chrome extension as well. So as Graham jumps from meeting to meeting, he's using the Mac app. Often he's clicking the video call button, getting thrown into a Google Meet. Our app's popping up during that Google Meet. We take our notes, leave the Google Meet, Autopilot finishes the meeting for us, emails everyone the notes, and sends them to Slack as well. And we're off to the next meeting in via that the Mac app as well. So kind of a really fun workflow that I would say is not only convenient, but I think for the folks who maybe aren't living in their calendar all day, all the time, whether they're engineers or designers or whatever, kind of a good reminder of, oh, don't be late, right? I often use it because I'm back to back, so it's almost like replaced my clock for me. I know that I've got once we've got 18 minutes left, Graham, and we've got and then I've got another meeting. So I look at it all the time to kind of keep me on track and keep me on time. And that app works. The Mac app, which is in out, you guys can try it. Works for all of your meetings. Doesn't necessarily have to be only meetings that are on or set up within our system. So you can use it almost like separate and independent of every other feature you just saw.
Yeah, and that's something we want to do, is just make an app that will work for anyone. It doesn't have to be a hypercontext user. Just, we think this is super powerful, so let's just let everyone use it. And it's free.
It's free. Yep.
Do you want to share the changelog slides again, Brennan?
Yeah.
I don't know how to really use PowerPoint.
Typical CTO stuff.
I don't know how to share it in like the little screen.
Okay. That's okay. That's okay.
My
no,
apologies.
You have to do some setup. Okay. So that was the demo. There's a lot more that we didn't cover. We wanted to keep it pretty high level. If you want more, want us to go into more, feel free to reach out to the team. Happy to jam on all these things. If we should do more of this, also let us know. Trying to be as close to the customers as we possibly can. So your voice matters a ton. Now we promise there's like more juicy stuff coming at the end. So I will transition over there. to what's upcoming. So I think there's probably like 4 buckets, right, Graham? We've got some more stuff coming in the calendar, more stuff coming for collaboration features, more stuff coming for workflow,
Yeah.
and then business stuff.
And then business
I'll let you
stuff.
take it
Yes.
over.
It's calendar, collab, workflow, and business are the 4 main focuses for the year. And then we're going to do our best to make improvements across the board on all of those every single quarter. So hopefully that you can hold me accountable. If we miss our deadlines, you let me know. Please feel free to publicly shame me on Twitter. I'm okay with that. That's going to happen. I know.
Reply to his
say.
change. He tweets every Friday or most Fridays with what's changed in the product. Just reply and be like, "No, Graham."
I know. Can you imagine? Oh,
it'd be great.
I'd probably
it would probably make a difference. Yeah.
Anyways, I don't want to take everyone's time. So I'll jump through this real quick just so we do have time for questions. I'm seeing a bunch of questions pop in, so I definitely want to answer all of them. So on the calendar, we've heard this a lot and we are working on it. We're working on it right now. The ability to add multiple calendars inside of the calendar workspace selector. So you can connect multiple calendars. People, not everyone's using their primary calendar. Some have a work one, a home one. They want to kind of balance them all. So you'll be able to click the gear button and then select your different calendars that you have access to, including ones that are not yours. So if someone has shared a calendar with you, they'll also pop up in the same list. So you can have access to your CEO's calendar or whatever you have access to. Cool. And then you can also select multiple calendar events on the workspace. So inside of one workspace right now, it's a one-to-one relationship. That's just how we built the first prototype, which then basically became the first version. Now we're refactoring that to allow you to have multiple calendar events synced to one workspace. So this works real well for let's say a one-on-one, and let's say every 3 one-on-ones you want to have a growth conversation, and versus talking about status updates and work updates. Historically, you'd have to have 2 one-on-ones inside of our app configured for that. One connected to the status updates, and one connected to the growth one. So now you can just have one that's about the human, and then connect to both calendar events in your calendar, and then that workspace will pop up every single time.
The other time we hear about this a lot is when teams have a meeting on, say, like Tuesday at 10 a.m. and Thursday at 1 p.m. In their calendar, they might be titled the same thing, but they tend to be 2 separate repeating events, one that repeats every Tuesday and one that repeats every Thursday. And they want our app to be able to use the same agenda for both meetings. Right now, it's impossible. Coming soon, very possible. So we're pretty excited about that as well.
Yeah.
I think this will also most likely significantly improve some of the calendar syncing. If you've ever noticed that the calendar has become disconnected. Desynced.
Yeah.
These things we'll be using a lot of this stuff internally to help keep things in sync. So stay tuned for all of that. I think that will be helpful for a lot of folks.
Yeah. The one thing, if I was to pick one thing that I'm focused on mostly, it's making sure the calendar works flawlessly for you. It is my biggest pet peeve. It's my biggest angry moment in my entire company is the calendar syncing. So we're definitely going to fix all the problems and make this calendar multi-sync thing work. It's going to be great. Cool. Collab. On that, we're also going to, is that really the next one? Oh, it is the next one. Okay, cool. We're also adding a lot more. So that was calendar syncing. We're also adding a lot more ways for you to collaborate with your colleagues at your company. This is kind of out of some frustrations that people have had when you're sharing a workspace with your team, be it over chat or even in person. If everyone's on the same agenda, there's times where you're overlapping the content. So you're writing over someone else's changes. It can be frustrating. So we're going to add these presence indications throughout the app. So you'll know who's attending that meeting, who's live there that day when you're having the meeting, and where are they in the document. So in the top corner where Brennan's highlighting, we'll know who's there. And then if someone is on an item editing it or making a change, you'll have an indication of that person being there. This will roll out in phases. So we'll probably roll out the top part, the presence, that they're in the meeting. So you just have awareness that there's someone also in here at the same time. And then we'll go with that level exactly of just item level. And then we'll go with the actual cursor level. So this will take us time to get it right. We want to make sure this is flawless. So it'll happen over the next year, but I'll have something out in the first quarter.
But I think beyond just the real-time collaborative nature of this, what's really neat, I think from our standpoint, is this can, I think really easily with some of the other things we've already shared, really easily allow us to almost take attendance who was there, who wasn't there. And, for the folks who weren't there, maybe they need an extra reminder on their next steps, or need an extra reminder on their notes, or maybe a summarization if they, miss a couple meetings because they're on vacation. So I think some of those things, beyond just the collaboration stuff, which will be really helpful, I think we can kind of lean into those in a couple of different ways.
And I agree with Brock. It is a super important and awesome feature. I'm pumped for this one, and this one here too. Right now, we already have Markdown support inside the app. We're going to add rich text editing as well. So that's also currently in development. They're working through some of the high level components, but then we're going to actually probably won't go live until probably January next year. It's almost basically done. Here's probably some of the basic functionality we'll support. So Markdown will still be supported for those who know Markdown very well. Go for it, and then we'll also support this using our Quill editor.
You got it. Yeah, it'll be good, and I think that will also allow you to do things that you're used to doing, like bold things with Command B, or italicize things with Control I, or stuff like that. So make little bulleted lists inside of your notes really easily and intuitively. So I think all those things will make our app just feel a little bit more intuitive and fun.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, the calendar integration and the note-taking elements, put that together, and that is a super strong product. And then add the workflow that we're building around that. That's it.
Easy peasy.
Yeah. All we have, and for all this, we're just listening to customers and taking their feedback and just doing what the customer wants. And that's the best part.
Yep.
More collaboration, and we're also launching. This has been a long project for us. It's it's a great project.
Graham and I talk about this project too often.
Every single week. Yeah. I know it's annoying, but it's okay. There's a lot there. This required a full restructuring of how we store information at a very core level. So it was very, very painstaking to fix the core architecture. But that's happened now, and we're about to launch the ability to have guest users inside of your community. So if you have an organization with your dedicated core team members, probably your employees, you'll have the ability now to invite externals or people who are outside of your organization, or like contractors, anyone who's like a one-off, and then you can have them in that specific meeting. They won't see anything else inside of your workspace, just the meetings you've added them to, and they won't be able to invite anyone else to those meetings. So that's key as well.
And the big thing beyond just the feature is guests will be free.
They'll be free. Yeah.
So we're pretty excited to get this to you. I think this will help a lot of folks, but beyond, they will be free, so it'll be cheap. I know everyone always likes that.
Yeah, that's what we want.
And we're rolling that one out in beta. Actually, Graham and I have been using it for the past little bit, but we're rolling it out in beta. There's like we said, there's been a lot of changes. We've been working on this one for a while. There's been a lot of changes internally to our systems to make this work. So want to roll it out, just kind of be gentle on it. But if anyone, I think we're pretty good to go on it. So if you see it, we'll be sure to announce. But give it a go when you see it.
As extra motivation for those, if you try out this feature for us, we'll send you a care package. Huh?
Oh yeah, that's right. Oh yeah, stay to the end, and we'll talk about we'll talk about swag. Stay to the very end. We'll talk about swag.
Yeah. Sorry,
I forgot about that. We said we were going to do that.
Yeah. Do that all the time. Cool. What's next?
Let's get users. That's exactly right. That's basically what we did. We thought like, hey, if you're going to invite a guest and demo our product for us, we should reward you by making that free. And that was basically the core of our argument, to say like, we're not going to charge you for demoing our product to someone else. We think that's unfair. And I think it's more likely that you're going to be meeting with these people more infrequently. So we just thought like pricing model, let's try to be more customer focused than profit focused on this one, and give you guys what you need.
Nice. Oh, and then this is an updated design of the Autopilot in effect. So you can see the top on this, the 52 minutes left. So that's just going to give you an indication of when Autopilot's going to auto archive all the information for you. So you have a sense of the timing. We will have the ability to customize that. To start, it's likely to be an hour after the meeting ends. We'll force the close, but then you'll be able to customize that in due time. Cool. And we'll definitely make sure we leave time for questions. So we'll whip through this and then stay to the end, because we're probably going to give you prizes for being on the call.
That's true.
Spoilers. And then you saw me demo the goals, where we have a progress indication. we're going to add these little, I guess, chevrons, the little red chevron there to give you a sense of the timeline for the progress, to know if you're meeting expectations, beating it, or falling behind. So that will just be a calendar, or like a countdown clock, basically.
And then more Mac, more Slack features, functionality, notifications, etc.
Yes. Yes. To answer one of the questions that's probably likely to come up, we are probably not going to support a Windows-based app to start. We don't have the team abilities to do that right now. We're pretty slammed, but that's something I definitely want to do in the future. So it's on the radar, but not in development for at least the first 6 to 9 months of next year.
Yeah.
And for large enterprises and just anyone who wants to have that extra level of security, right now, so we don't do email password. I will never store a password inside of our app. I like to trust other companies to manage authentication. So we have Google, Slack, Teams, Azure. I think that's all of them. And email and Magic Link. We have those supported automatically right now. We've also just integrated a service that allows us to hook into other identity providers like a raw SAML integration, OneLogin, Okta, VMware, OpenID, all the ones you see here. So if your organization does use single sign-on, we are able to integrate with that directly. And because of the thing we're doing here, we're also about to start development on a directory sync. So this is for SCIM abilities, if your organization supports that, which will sync the membership of your Hypercontext app with the company that you work with. So if you delete someone or deactivate a person from your company inside of your HR system, like Bamboo HR or your Google Suite, it will automatically be updated inside of our app. So you'll make sure your system is fully protected and you can control your authentication. So that will roll out for all of these providers to start. So that's likely to start development early January, probably I'd say February, March before that goes live. But the identity is live now, and you'll see that next year on our marketing website. Good. Did that fast as I could. Oh, you're muted, buddy.
I was gonna say, I think that's it. You covered me. I think that's it. I'll stop the share. We have some questions. Feel free to continue to add. We will be sharing the recording, so if you miss something, you'll get that in a second, and we'll happy to follow up if we can't get through all of them. But we got 4 minutes. Let's go through that, and then the last thing we'll cover is swag packs for those that are still here. So first question that I see, Graham, any plans to create a Hypercontext user community for sharing discussion tips and peer help?
I like that. That's a good idea. We could definitely do that. I've always wanted to have like a Discord group for that, but I know it's like more of an engineering tech gamer thing, not so much business people, but I'm open. We can do a shared Slack group or anything.
Let us know what go to the chat. Let us know what, how you think we should do that. Hosted at Hypercontext. Oh, there are some things. Yeah, we've been thinking a little bit with guest users, external users. We can actually start actually inviting all of you into our Hypercontext and have you collaborate with us within the app, which is kind of fun as well. Goals. How do goals work with reporting or retrospectives? So how can you kind of look at the historical of some of these goals?
That's a solid question. So right now it's very much inside of each workspace, you have your goal history there. We've got a lot of thoughts on the reporting capabilities and exporting data to get you like that whole synopsis of a whole person over the past year. That's something we're definitely working on right now, kind of on the back burner.
For the most part, it exists. For the most part, it exists within the goals area. Like when you complete goals, they complete and archive there, and it exists within your meeting. So as you take notes and next steps on those goal check-ins, it exists in kind of the meeting history. What Graham's saying is exactly right. We're thinking about how do we, look at goals from, just a goal, single view perspective of, how's my whole team doing. With their professional development goals. I just only want to see that. Thinking a lot about it. There is some reporting available on it, but it's a little light.
Yeah, I'm gonna make a note just so I have that top of mind, so I think about it more often.
Will goals be available to small teams at any point? You can have goals now. It's just not on the small teams plan. It is an extra $4 a user a month, so it's not necessarily like a bank breaker, but just as of right now, you can't self-serve to it. You just need to write into support and say, "Hey, give me a trial of goals. I want to check it out. 30-day trial free, and then you can downgrade back to small teams if you don't like it." Graham, how do guests work with next steps?
Oh, they should work just the same. A guest can be assigned to a next step. A guest can write their own next steps as well, and they can check them off just the same as a team member would.
And one of the things we have, and one of the reasons why we're calling this beta is we're probably going to start limiting what a guest can do with time. But to start, we're going to let guests do whatever. And then we're probably going to start to limit exactly what they're capable of, which is why it's beta. So, at the start, guests will be able to edit your items if they went in to do that. But as time goes on, those things probably make a little bit less sense. We'll see. You'll tell us.
Yeah.
When's guest going to be deployed? Where's Adam?
Is he on the call? I don't think
Chris?
he is.
No, I don't know.
So guest has, I think, one more piece of work to be QA'd, and once it is, and if everything is good, we're good to go. So it's most of the roles permissions is what we're currently looking at. So just making sure that what a guest can do is restrictive, at least in a detrimental way to your bill, basically is what we're looking at. So once that's the guest user won't impact your bill, then we'll roll it out too.
Jonathan, and to answer your not a question, you're exactly right. Yeah, we'll be eventually allowing you to kind of promote and demote someone from a guest to a member and from a member to a guest.